Yo, what's going on? And welcome back to D+Pad Life. And today we are going to be discussing Resident Evil Revelations 2. The time has finally come to talk about this one. Now, if you know anything about me, you know that the Revelations games, to me, are some of the better modern Resident Evil titles. I think often people recognize them as a spin-off game and they just kind of don't get the respect that I think they deserve. And on one hand, I can understand it. They're certainly, they're lower budget. They're certainly a different experience. They offer a different approach to storytelling, and I could get why maybe for some that doesn't earn it the same level of prestige. But I'm here to tell you that Revelations 1 and 2 are not to be slept on. You definitely want to check these ones out. But before we dive in, this is part 13 of an entire discussion series on the entirety of the Resident Evil franchise, at least the games that are canonical to the storyline that I chose to cover anyway. We have been talking about every single game in the series. We have covered Resident Evil 1 through 3, as well as their remakes, Resident Evil Code Veronica and Zero, Resident Evil 4 and its remake, Revelations 1, and Resident Evil 5. So if all that sounds interesting to you, please subscribe to the channel. I've got an entire playlist available to you of every single video we've made so far. And we're not done here. After this, we've still got Resident Evil 6, 7, and 8 to go through. So plenty of places to go to after here, and it's not going to be the end of me discussing Resident Evil on this channel. I love talking about this series. So in this series, I talk about my initial time with the game, as far as like initial impressions and how I got around to experiencing it, as well as what I liked about it, what I disliked about it. No spoilers here, just a general discussion about the game. So yeah, if that sounds fun, let's get into it. So with Resident Evil Revelations 2, it's interesting as far as like my initial time with this game. I'm not sure if I actually have a specific memory on when the first time was I picked it up. I do know this. I know that it got a demo released on PlayStation 3. They might have even released the entire first episode. And I checked that out first, and I definitely liked it. I definitely thought it was good. I thought it was, pretty interesting. But, I'm sitting here saying definitely liked it. I think there was a bit of me that was like, I'm not so sure about this. At that point, I still hadn't played Revelations 1. So technically, this was my first Revelations game as far as just like getting my hands on it. But at some point, I ultimately decided to snag a physical copy, and that's this one. This is the same physical copy I've had since the beginning, because similar to Revelations 1, this game is episodic, and differently than Revelations 1, this came out on consoles first. Revelations 1 was originally a 3DS release, and so when it got its console release, it just all came out all at once. But when Revelations 2 got its console release, it was released in episodes over a period of time, and then you could get the whole game for a slightly cheaper price digitally, and then eventually they made the physical release, which came with like all the DLC that you can see there. Again, that DLC was sold separately as well. So to play this game originally digitally was quite the costly endeavor. And I knew that going in, so I decided to wait until I could get a physical release. And once I checked this game out, man, I gotta tell you, I wasn't disappointed. I think that Revelations 2, what it's probably most known for is its raid mode. That is a bonus mode where it's kind of hard for me to describe because I don't have a ton of experience with it, but think mercenaries mode, but maybe with like more RPG elements to it. I don't want to speak out of turn here. I'm trying to make it very clear. I am actually super unfamiliar with the raid mode. All I know though is that the fan base loved it. It was a really popular mode. In fact, I still think if you pop in Revelations 2, raid mode is still up to play. That's how legendary it was. I know you can unlock a bunch of different characters, a bunch of different weapons, and characters that aren't even in the game, like Hunk and Wesker and stuff like that. In fact, they might even say it on the back cover here. Yeah, raid mode characters, Hunk and Albert Wesker are included. And the raid mode throwback pack, map pack, which must mean that levels from the other games. This might be worth checking out. I might actually enjoy that. But it sounds like a lot of fan service, and that is really Revelations 2 claim to fame. But I'm here to tell you, man, that's not all. That's really not all. So let's boot this sucker up and get some vibes going. So Revelations 2 is really interesting. It takes place on this island where there were people living there, but essentially some organization came and started doing experiments on the people. Experiments all based on fear. The idea being that they're going to gauge the level of fear you experience. And if it's substantial, then a virus that they had injected people with would go off. And that's the most I'll say as far as that goes. That is a bit of things you learn within the game, obviously, but that's the mindset. So when you play it and you're wondering why conditions are what they are, or things are the way they are on the island, that's kind of the back of it. That's like why, because I'm playing the game, I'm like, who would even live on this decrepit, nasty island? And then once I start to kind of explore the story and realize like, oh, like these people were held prisoner and they were put under extreme conditions for a reason. It's all part of this experiment. And ultimately, where the story goes and who is like revealed, again, Revelations, who is revealed to be the big bad, I found it actually pretty interesting and pretty cool. It was something that I was kind of surprised was actually held for a spin-off game. I'm kind of shocked. I actually thought it was good enough that I would have preferred it to be in one of the mainline games personally. But in any case, yeah, so you play as Claire and Barry. That's right, man. Barry from Resident Evil 1. He's finally got a playable role in a game. And I got to tell you, that's what definitely brought me to the dance on this one, man. When I learned that I got to play as Barry Burton, I have this, Mr. Jill Sandwich. I knew I had to play this game, man. I had to get my hands on it as soon as I could. Yeah, this is a special one. There's also a couple of interesting side characters. So that's one of the things that makes this game unique. So in Revelations 1, you never play as a single character by themselves. They always have an ally with them. That's something I failed to mention in my coverage of that. But in this one, the side character can actually be controlled via co-op mode, which is, man, I wish that was something they would add retroactively to Revelations 1. That would have been so cool. Because in Revelations 1, you're both fully capable soldiers. In Revelations 2, the second player would control more of a supportive character. So Claire has Maura Burton. That's right, Burton. It's Barry's daughter. Barry has children. They're mentioned in the very first Resident Evil game. And come now, she has joined an organization that Claire is actually a part of. So when they got kidnapped, they end up linking up together and leaning on one another to make it out and survive. And so, and then Barry meets a young girl, a citizen of the island named Natalia, and they join together. And both Natalia and Maura have different, I'll just say like abilities. I'm not talking about like special powers per se, but just like, abilities that they can do in fights. Like Natalia can sense enemies through the wall. So if you play as her, you can kind of see like this like glowing figment through walls of like, okay, there's someone over there. And she can actually, her aim button is her pointing. And so when she points, her character will actually warn Barry of where the enemies are. So that's one of the ways you can work together on 2-player mode. And then Maura actually has like a crowbar she can use. She also has a flashlight, so she can hold a flashlight up to enemies' eyes, and if she holds it there long enough, they'll become blinded and stunned, leaving them open to be attacked via melee or just free pot shots from Claire. And so Claire and Barry are the more capable characters. They have a full arsenal, throwable objects, things of that nature. More traditional, conventional style of third person, action games. And so you end up with this nice ebb and flow of supporting characters and main characters. And if you play on single player, you can just swap between the two and utilize both, which is actually really fun. Works out really well. It kind of gives me Resident Evil 0 vibes a little bit, being able to swap between two characters and utilize them both. Again, though, Resident Evil 0 is more of like your two capable characters, so a little different there. But overall, I just found the pacing of the game to be pretty enjoyable. I mean, one of the things that is kind of, I think will be like hit or miss for people is you'll play through a section as Claire, and then you'll play as a section as Barry. And Barry has come to the island, I can't remember the exact timeline. I'm going to say weeks after Claire has already been there. And so time has passed. The island has actually gotten in worse condition, and you go through the same areas Claire went through, usually in reverse or in some sort of different order. And I feel like that could be tiring for people because you spend an entire episode exploring the same areas twice in a way. But often you kind of go through a different path. You don't see the exact same place, especially as you get further in the game. That happens less and less. But I could understand why that could be like frustrating for some. I think retreading areas or even what could be considered backtracking can be considered, boring or at least a downer for some gamers. To me, it didn't really bother me much. I thought it made sense for the story they were telling, and it just kind of felt cool to have Barry like tracking Claire and Mora in that way. And it just felt relevant to the plot they were telling, so it didn't bother me. And they do enough differently with like enemy layout, the world actually like changing because time has passed, and things of that nature, as well as just like cutscenes and conversations, which the banter between the characters is something I really enjoyed. Claire and Mora talking, Natalia and Barry talking. I definitely enjoyed that. This game does really good stuff with like inventory management, and they actually add a few new items that you've never seen in the series before. Like, actually, I was about to say Molotov cocktails, but those are in 0, but they're back. It's been a while, right? So it's been so long that it almost feels like a whole new item. I believe there's like smoke grenades. I think there's like regular like hand grenades, basically. They're crafted though, so unlike Resident Evil 4 with like standard grenades, these are all crafted. I guess Molotov cocktails could kind of be considered flame grenades. Maybe I'm wrong, but you do craft them, and that makes them a little bit more unique and different. So with all that being said, there's also mechanics like you can get hit so hard that you start bleeding, and so you have to use a bandage. And I think the bleeding just kind of like slows you down. It interferes with your vision, and I think it makes enemies be able to track you a lot easier. Like I think they aggro towards you. So yeah, I don't think I have much more to say other than that. As far as bad things go, I've kind of covered them a little bit. I mean, you go through the same areas, right? Sorry, it's early. If y'all can't tell, it is nearly 5:30 in the morning. I'm trying to record this before I go to work, so collecting my thoughts is a little challenging at the moment. But I mean, I will say that I didn't prefer this one over Revelations 1, but most people do prefer this one over Revelations 1. I will say this is the like sharper of the two, if that makes sense. The controls just feel a little better. The mechanics all handle better. Both games have a dodge mechanic, but this game has a dedicated dodge button, which is a first for Resident Evil. Think Resident Evil 3 Remake's dodge. This is where they got that from. Revelations 1, it was more like you have to hit the run button and like forward or back before the enemy hits you, makes contact, but you have to like time it. This game, you can just dodge as much as you like, which actually feels really good. It feels really good. But as far as things I don't like, I mean, I will say some of the dialogue, some of the writing for some of the characters can be a little cringe, honestly. It didn't necessarily make me like them all that much or like them as much as I think I was intended to. But overall, in the end, I ultimately had an appreciation for the entire cast. I will say that the storyline, it's good. I like it. Similar to Revelations 1, it's kind of a little bit of a wacky, goofy, out there storyline, but it's not wacky goofy like Resident Evil 6 wacky goofy, which we'll get to, but Resident Evil 6 is bonkers, man. That game goes a little all over the place. But all in all, what I can say is I do actually really recommend this one. I don't know if I've done a great job speaking to its strengths or selling it to you, but what I will say is I think if you play if you had to pick one of the Revelations game, I'm more privy to say the first one, but when it comes to like being friendly gameplay wise, as far as like mechanics that I think people are going to enjoy more, that are snappier and a bit more frenetic and fun, I would actually recommend Revelations 2 over Revelations 1. Let's see what happens if I go to the main menu. I'm just curious if it looks interesting at all. Oh, I sees you. Yeah, I would say I recommend Revelations 2 over Revelations 1 in that respect. But I think that raid mode really does. Oh my gosh, would you like to download it? Sure. Where to download? Oh my gosh, no. Yeah, we're doing this on the fly. But in any case, yeah, I definitely think that this is one that is deserving of your attention. I know it's a side game. I know it's an older game. I know that for some, it's kind of like questionable and like, why would I even spend my time playing that? But what I can say is it is a really good time. It is really fun. It tells a really interesting story, and it's super fun to visit Barry and Claire again. I know there's a lot of Claire fans in the fan base, and if you really love Claire, you do not want to sleep on this one. It's a fun adventure for sure. Oh, cool. Yeah, this main theme. We could have been listening to this the whole time. But in any case, stay tuned, because coming up next is Resident Evil 6. That's right, the controversial Resident Evil 6. I got a lot to say about this one. This was a girthy game, man. It is a major long experience, and certainly there's plenty to cover here. But we are reaching the tail end here. This will be number 14, and then 7 will be 15, and 8 will be 16. It'll be a 16-part series up to this point until we get Resident Evil 9 at the end of this month, the end of February. So appreciate you guys for staying tuned. Appreciate you guys for checking in. And oh yeah, before I forget, if you enjoyed this conversation today, please consider subscribing to the channel. I cover Resident Evil all the time, and we are on the road to 100 subs. I think last I checked, we were at like 95 or so. Man, we're almost there. We're almost there. If you just hit that sub button, you'll help me get there, and I'd really appreciate it, man. We're on the road to 100, and we're almost there. And also, if you enjoyed this video today, please give it a like. It goes a long way in supporting the channel, helps gets us some exposure out here in this algorithm, and it's all about having fun and talking about video games together and just hanging out. Speaking of which, let's talk about some video games, man. Comment down below. Have you played Revelations 2? What did you think about it? Have you not played it, and why? Which one do you prefer, Revelations 1 or 2? What's your favorite Resident Evil? All that type of stuff? Man, that belongs down there. I want to hear about it. Yeah, thanks for watching D+Pad Life, and I'll see y'all next time with Resident Evil 6.